Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. Upward revisions in German and European zone PMI services data helps offset euro currency weakness analysis. http ntvforex.com News ID 861 A3D93 2020 12/22 19 p.m. Notes Observations Major European PMI services data mixed beats Eurozone, Germany, misses France, Italy, and France. More reports of verbal intervention helping the greenback rebound from recent two-year lows. Asia Australia OG final PMI services 49.0 v 48.1 prelim confirmed first contraction in 3 months. Japan OG final PMI services 45.0 v 45.0 prelim confirmed 6th straight contraction. Australia July trade balance $4.6 BV $5.4 B. China Caixin PMI services 54.0 v 53.9 e. Fourth month of expansion. China government said to plan broad chip sector support in order to compete with US and retaliate. BOJ's Kataoka Ultra Dove stated that must try to curb downward pressure on prices as much as possible. BOJ should clarify intention of cutting interest rates and purchase JGBs aggressively. Coronavirus total global cases 25,938,122 1.1% DD total deaths toll 861.7 K 0.7% DD US CDC said to have called on states to be ready for potential vaccine by early November. Europe more reports that ECB officials were concerned of a rising euro currency due to disinflationary factors. German Chancellor Merkel's CDU party supported extra deficit spending in 2021 for Germany. France government formally announced its A100B recovery plan as speculated, with 35B earmarked for making the economy more competitive, A30B allocated to climate transition and A25B to support jobs and training. SNBS Zeebrugge stated that did not see evidence of a high inflation rate demand shock having dampening impact on CPI. Reiterated stance that negative interest rates and currency interventions are fundamental for Swiss economy. Reiterated stance that SNB has room to maneuver on rates if needed. UK Chancellor of the Exchequer Sunak Finmin noted that reports on tax hikes were speculation and that the government's short-term priority was to create jobs, drive recovery. Numerous BO officials presented parliamentary testimony which warned of bigger risks for UK economy. America's Congressional Budget Office CBO cuts projected FY20 US budget deficit to $3.3t from $3.7t in April, but still projected US debt to hit 100% of GDP in FY21. For the first time since World War II, Fed Beige Book employment increased overall among districts with gains in manufacturing cited most often. Fed's daily non-voter: it is harder for central banks to increase inflation than it is to lower. Noted that there was no pressing need to give forward guidance on rate path. Speakers fixed income FX commodities Iratum equities indices STOXX 6001.01% at 375.04. FTSE 0.70% at 5,982.26, DAX 1.52% at 13,445.00, CAC 41.75% at 5,119.83, IBEX 35.179% at 7,122.00, FTSE MIB 0.94% at 20,044.50, SME 0.71% at 10,458.12, S&P 500 futures 0.11%. Market focal points. Key themes: European indices open higher across the board and advanced further into the green as the session progressed. Better performing sectors include financials and consumer discretionary materials and energy sectors. Among underperformers, French government gives details of A100B stimulus plan. Reportedly, CVC interested in Capita. Sanofi and GSK launch protein-based vaccine trial. BPER receives authorization to acquire unit from Intesa. Siemens Health Iners issues shares diluting Siemens stake. Focus on upcoming employment data from U.S. earnings expected in upcoming U.S. session include Ciena, Campbell's Soup and Broadcom. Equities Consumer Discretionary RPs Group RPS.UK 13% Earnings Placement Financial CMC Markets CMCX.UK 7% Trading Update Healthcare Siemens Healthineers SHL.DE 4% Capital Increase Industrials Costain Cost.UK 23% Update on Contract Technology Capgemini CAP.FR 2% Earnings NCC Group NCC.UK 5% Earnings Telecom Iliad ILD.FR 2% Earnings Speakers Germany Finmin Scholz stated that government would try to return to normal budget in 2022 Sweden Central Bank Riksbank Kingsley We are in serious economic situation will take time for inflation to reach the target. German VDMA Engineering Association noted that July export order 19.0% YY but added that orders had likely have bottomed out. China Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Xinying stated that new U.S. diplomat rules were not legitimate and illegal. China to take necessary response. Currencies fixed income more reports of verbal intervention helping the greenback rebound from recent two-year lows. EUR/USD hovered around the 1.18 area in the session as reports circulated that more ECB officials were said to be concerned of a rising euro currency and its disinflationary implications. Additionally, euro appreciation could weigh on exports and intensify pressure for more monetary stimulus. Dealers noted that the recent rhetoric out of the ECB would likely cap the currency under the 1.20 level for now but might not be enough to derail the overall trend of its path. A speech from ECB board member Schnabel Germany to be closely watched for any comments on the currency. Pair off session lows by mid-session aided by upward revisions in the German and Eurozone final PMI services readings. Spanish and French issuance provided a test for demand of long-dated paper economic data. UK OG official reserves changes $0.5 billion v $4.0 billion prior RU Russia OG PMI services 58.2 v 54.1 e second month of expansion PMI composite 57.3 v 56.8 prior SE Sweden OG PMI services 56.6 v 55.0 prior PMI composite 53.7 v 54.0 prior CH Swiss OG CPIMM 0.0% v 0.1% EYY 0.9% v 0.8% ECPI Core YY 0.4% v 0.4% ECH Swiss OG CPI EU Harmonized MM 0.1% v 0.1% prior YY 1.4% v 1.2% prior CZ Czech OG unemployment rate 3.8% v 3.8% ECZ Czech Q2 average real monthly wage YY 2.5% v 2.1% EU Hungary July retail sales YY 0.4% v 1.3% ETR Turkey OG CPIMM 0.9% v 1.0% EYY 11.8% v 11.9% ECPI Core Index YY 11.0% v 11.0% ETR Turkey OG PPIMM 2.4% v 1.6% EYY 11.5% v 10.7% EES Spain OG Services PMI 47.7 v 48.0 E first contraction in 3 months composite PMI 48.4 v 49.3 EZA South Africa OG PMI whole economy 45.3 v 44.9 prior 16th straight contraction IT Italy OG Services PMI 47.1 v 49.5 E moved back into contraction. Composite PMI 49.5 v 50.0 EFR France OG Final Services PMI 51.5 v 51.9 E confirmed third straight expansion Composite PMI 51.6 v 51.7 E to Germany OG Final Services PMI 52.5 v 50.8 E confirmed second month of expansion Composite PMI 54.4 v 53.7 E EU Eurozone OG Final Services PMI 50.5 v 50.1 E confirmed second month of expansion Composite PMI 51.9 v 51.6 E UK OG Final Services PMI 58.8 v 60.1 E confirms second straight expansion and highest since April 2015 Composite PMI 59.1 v 60.3 E EU Eurozone July retail Sales MM 1.3% V 1.0% EYY 0.4% V 1.9% EGR Greece Q2 GDP QQ 14.0% V 13.8% EYY 15.0% V 0.5% prior GDP NSA UNA OYY no EST V 1.0% prior Cyprus OG CPI 0.6% V 0.8% prior YY 1.2% V 1.5% prior fixed income issuance ES Spain debt agency Tesoro sold total A 4.033B versus A 3.54.5B indicated range in 2025, 2028, and 2035 SPGB bonds sold A 880M in 0.0% January 2025 SGPB bonds average yield 0.276% V 0.194% prior bid to cover 4.88x V 2.48x prior sold A 960M in 1.40% July 2028 SPGB bonds average yield 0.047% V 1.402% prior, bid to cover 2.38x V 1.27x prior solds A 2.193B in 1.85% July 2035 SPGB bonds average yield 0.636% V 0.694% prior, bid to cover 1.41x V 2.02x ES Spain debt agency Tesoro sold A 488M versus A 257.50M indicated range in 0.70% November 2033 inflation-linked bonds real yield 0.432% V 0.380% prior bid to cover 1.76x V 1.54x prior FR France debt agency AFT sold total A 10.513B versus A 9.511.0B indicated range in 2030, 2036, 2052 and 2060 bonds sold A 5.725B in 0.00% November 2030 OAT average yield 0.19% V 0.09% prior bid to cover 1.65x V 2.73x prior sold A 1.960B in 1.25% May 2036 OAT average yield 0.09% V 0.44% prior bid to cover 1.92x V 2.36x prior sold A 1.773B in 0.75% May 2052 OAT average yield 0.53% V 0.64% prior bid to cover 1.99x V 1.82x prior sold A 1.055B in 4.00% April 2060 OAT average yield 0.57% V 0.86% prior bid to cover 1.70x V 2.30x prior SE Sweden sold SE Ka 0.0B versus SE Ka 0.0B indicated in 0.125% disinflation linked 2027 bonds average yield 1.387% V 1.3577% prior bid to cover 3.64x V 4.27x prior UK DMO sold A 3.0B in 0.125% January 2028 Gilts average yield 0.126% V 0.151% prior bid to cover 2.11x V 2.88x prior tail 0.4 bps V 0.2 bps prior looking ahead 0530 WHO Hungary debt agency AKK to sell bonds 0530 PL Poland switch auction 0600 IE Ireland OG live register monthly change no ESTV 12.9K prior live register level no ESTV 226.6K prior 0630 UK DMO to sell A 2.0B in 1.25% October 2041 Gilts 0645 US daily Libor fixing 0700 UR Ukraine Central Bank NBU interest rate decision expected to leave key rate unchanged at 6.00% 0700 ZA South Africa July electricity production YY no ESTV 5.8% prior electricity consumption YY no ESTV 4.9% prior 0730 US OG Challenger job cuts no ESTV 262.7K prior YY no ESTV 576.1% prior 0730 SE Sweden Central Bank Riksbank Gov 0 0800 BR Brazil July industrial production 5.8% EV 8.9% prior YY 6.1% EV 9.0% prior 0800 UK daily Baltic dry bulk index 0830 US Q2 final non-farm productivity 7.5% EV 7.3% prelim unit labor costs 12.0% EV 12.2% prelim 0830 US initial jobless claims 950k EV 1.006 prior continuing claims 14.00 EV 14.535 M prior 0830 US July trade balance $58.0 BV $50.7 billion prior 0830 CA Canada July and L merchandise trade CAD 2.5 BV 3.2 B prior 0830 US weekly USDA net export sales 0900 RU Russia gold and Forex reserve WE August 28 no ESTV $590.8 billion prior 0900 BR Brazil AUG PMI services no ESTV 42.5 prior PMI composite no ESTV 47.3 prior 0900 SG Singapore AUG purchasing managers index 50.1 EV 50.2 prior electronics sector Index no ESTV 49.2 prior 0945 US AUG final market services PMI 54.7 EV 54.8 prelim composite PMI no ESTV 54.7 prelim 1000 US AUG ISM services index 57.0 EV 58.1 prior 1000 UK Bo Gav Bailey on cryptocurrencies 1000 UK Bo S Ramsden 1030 US weekly EIA natural gas inventories 1100 to ECBS Schnabel Germany 1200 CA Canada to sell 5-year bonds 1230 US Fed S Evans on economy and monetary policy 1500 AR Argentina July industrial production YY no ESTV 6.6% prior construction activity YY no ESTV 14.8% prior 1845 NZ New Zealand Q2 volume of all buildings QQ 30.0% EV 5.7% prior 1900 KR South Korea July current account balance no ESTV $6.9 billion prior balance of goods BOP no ESTV $5.9 billion prior 2100 PH Philippines AUG CPI YY 2.7% EV 2.7% prior 2130 Australia July retail sales 3.3% EV 2.7% prior 2300 CN China to sell 3-month and 6-month bills 2330 JP Japan to sell 3-month bills. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://mt5.expert.advisors.